Good morning.
We want to first make, you want to just make sure that the microphones are working and everyone has sound, but I hear it.
I believe we were going to remind everybody to pull the mics closer to them so we have better speaking sound.
If anybody's on a laptop or a tablet, please mute that device. Not those who are remote, of course, but those who are in the boardroom.
Let's see, do we have an echo now? Are we good? Can everyone on Zoom hear us? That
Sounds good.
All right. Thank you. We do have the chat feature up and live too, so we can be able to see any questions from board members through the Zoom group chat as well. So hopefully this goes a little smoother than the last couple of meetings with the microphone issues and the chat issues. That being said, let's call the meeting to order, and if we could all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. This is led by Supervisor Driscoll.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. If we could have roll call, please.
Mr. Conover?
Here.
Mr. Leggett? Mr. Leggett? Mr. Diamond?
Here.
Mr. McDevitt?
Here.
Here.
Mr. Bruno?
Here.
Mr. Driscoll?
Here.
Mrs. Frazier?
Here.
Ms. Smith?
Here.
Ms. Hogan?
Here.
Mr. Dickinson? Mr. Dickinson?
Here.
Mr. Merlino?
Here.
Mr. Stroud?
Here.
Mr. Wild?
Here.
Mr. McGowan?
Here.
Mr. Beatty?
Here.
Mr. Thomas? Ms. Shepler?
Here.
Mr. Garrity?
Here.
Chairwoman Seaver?
Present.
Quorum is established.
Thank you. At this point, could I please have a motion to approve the minutes from the January 15th board meeting? It's subject to correction by the clerk of the board.
I'll move it.
Thank you, Supervisor Garrity. A second.
A second.
Thank you, Supervisor Diamond. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstained. The motion carries. Thank you. At this point in time, I'd like to ask both our county administrator and our personnel chair, Supervisor Bramer, for the employee of the month presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Claudia, do you want to start it off or you want me to? Okay. We are very pleased to continue the theme that we've been doing here with coronavirus heroes, if you will, and there are far too many of them to acknowledge, but we awarded Janelle Jones the Employee of the Year last year. The previous month, we awarded Pat Belden, Janelle's deputy, as Employee of the Month. And this year we have an awardee who has helped us out so much from a communications perspective. She's worked every single day with Don Lehman to make sure that we have excellent and up-to-date content on our COVID hub. And that's in addition to her day job, if you will, at the planning department, where she's handled issues including the census and so many other things that are important to this county. So I am very pleased to say that our Employee of the Month is Sarah Frankenfeld in the planning department. And I'll turn it over to, I believe we have several individuals who'd like to speak to her accomplishment.
Good morning. I had written up just a little something about how Sarah has helped with our communication efforts during this pandemic. Sarah has gone above and beyond to help keep Warren County residents informed throughout the pandemic, serving as the sole webmaster for the Warren County COVID Hub website since the pandemic took hold here in Warren County last spring. That has meant updating this site every day, 7 days a week, oftentimes several times a day, and on weekends, at night, and during holidays, as well as reorganizing this website numerous times as we've moved through phases of the shutdown, business reopenings, vaccine distribution, and the holiday surge of COVID cases. This website has gotten thousands of views and clicks per day, so we know that it's been an important resource during this pandemic. In addition to overseeing the COVID Hub, Sarah has taken on numerous projects to help our tourism, hospitality, communications group, updating trail maps on the Rec Mapper website to let people know about trails where they could socially distance, creating a well-received promotional website for snowshoeing, and a project to raise awareness toward the trees that make our environment special. She also oversaw the 2020 census effort in Warren County, which you guys know was just on a federal level, just one restart after another. She did all that while also, handling her other duties that Wayne can kind of elaborate on, as he knows more than that. But I just wanted to thank Sarah for all she's done to help me keep everybody informed here during the pandemic.
Well, if I may, I don't see Sarah's name on here. Was she sent an invite to the meeting?
She's only employee of the month.
Yeah. I did send her, I forwarded the Zoom information to her. I don't know if she's come on or not. I don't see her here, but this is something that I think is just overdue for Sarah. She came to the department in 1997, brought a lot of enthusiasm, and even after all these years, she still has that enthusiasm. So, I think as Don alluded to, this is a 7-day a week position. She's the only one that maintains the GIS. So she goes on vacation. We have to know where she is. She was in Nova Scotia. We had to text her for have her log on to fix the system. That dedication needs to be rewarded. And I think this is, as I said, a well-deserved honor. The last illustration is last Saturday, last Sunday, Monday was a holiday. What do I get? I get emails every day from her on work items. So I tell her she needs to get a life, but she just kind of laughs at that. But that's the kind of person she is, and I think the county is really blessed to have her as an employee, and I know we enjoy her here. Again, well deserved, overdue, and thank you, Sarah.
Great choice.
It really is a great choice, and this is Supervisor Bramer. I want to thank Don Lehman for nominating Sarah way back last spring, right when Don came on board, and I really appreciate Wayne Lamont, the director of Sarah's department, for supporting her throughout this time. And we really do want to recognize Sarah for all of the efforts that she put in 2020 above and beyond her regular work duties in the GIS department, helping with all sorts of COVID-related things, and also helping people out in our private world. I know that she was helping on the hospitality task force with group things and being an active participant in our private industry, which is really exciting, good partnership there. So please join me in congratulating and thanking Sarah Frankenfeld.
Thank you, and I know Sarah will appreciate all of those comments, and we did spring this last minute this week, reinstating, of course, the Employee of the Month for this year. So certainly we look forward to seeing her again in the future, and I'm sure we all extend our congratulations. Thank you for that.
Sarah did just say thank you on YouTube. Apparently the Zoom link got lost somewhere, so she did not get it, unfortunately, but she did just post a thank you on YouTube.
Well, our thanks are really to you, Sarah. Thank you very much. At this point, I'd like to declare a public hearing open on the possible submission of one or more community block grants, known as CDBG, applications for the 2020 program year. And I'm going to request that the clerk of the board read the notice of the public hearing out loud. And privilege of the floor will be extended to anyone wishing to be heard on this matter.
Warren County will hold a public hearing on February 19, 2021 at 10 a.m. at the County Municipal Center located at 1340 State Route 9, Queensbury, New York, for the purpose of hearing public comments on community needs for Warren County and to discuss the possible submission of one or more community development block grant CDBG applications for the 2020 program year. The CDBG program is administered by the New York State Office of Community Renewal and will make available to eligible local governments approximately $49 million for the 2020 program year for housing, economic development, public facilities, public infrastructure, planning activities with the principal purpose of benefiting low and moderate income persons. The hearing will provide further information about the CDBG program and will allow for citizen participation in the development of any proposed grant applications and/or to provide technical assistance to develop alternate proposals. Comments on the CDBG program or proposed projects will be received at this time. The hearing is being conducted pursuant to Section 570.486, Subpart 1 of the CFR and in compliance with the requirements of the Housing and Community Development Act of 1974 as amended. At this time, the Warren County Municipal Center is closed to the public. Therefore, this public hearing will be held via Zoom video conference. Anyone wishing to comment must contact the clerk of the Board of Supervisors to obtain an invitation to this virtual meeting. Comments can also be submitted in writing to Amanda Allen, clerk of the Board of Supervisors, 1340 State Route 9, Lake George, New York, 12845, or by email no later than February 18, 2021. If special accommodations are needed for persons with disabilities, those with hearing impairments, or those in need of translation from English, those individuals should contact the Warren County Clerk of the Board of Supervisors by phone, 518-761-7656 between 8:30 a.m. and 4 p.m. during regular business days, or by email at least 7 business days in advance of the public hearing date to allow for necessary arrangements. We have not received any comments or requests for assistance.
Thank you. Mr. Lehman, are there any comments on this at this time on YouTube?
No, Chairwoman Sieber, no comments.
Thank you. At this time, I would like to close then the public hearing.
Can I comment?
Of course, Supervisor Garrity.
I'd just like to say that we're very fortunate to have the planning department we have that will take the lead to do these applications for the towns. And I think it's the leadership of Wayne and Pat, who've been around for a long time, that, you know, you feel comfortable when you apply for a CBG grant that we should be successful. So I want to thank the planning department, and especially those two, for all the help they've given us in this and following all the rules. And it's a pleasure working with them. I just wanted to know that.
Thank you. Are there other comments from the Board of Supervisors or other people on the call today regarding this? Mr. Lamont, did you have a comment?
Yes, statutorily, there's some things that I need to cover as part of the public hearing. So if I may.
Of course.
The board members should have received a 6-page information sheet on the public hearing process and the Community Development Block Grant Program. By statute of the federal regulations, I have to go through this with the board so the public can understand it. So I'll briefly go over it. The Small Cities Program, as the Community Development Block Grant is known, as has the major objective of benefiting persons of low and moderate income. There are statutory income limits for recipients of the program, and anything that we devise from a county application must address the needs of low and moderate income persons. There are 3 different types of projects that are eligible in this funding round. That is public infrastructure, water, sewer, roads, those types of things that support job creation for low and moderate income persons. Public facilities, which is what we are under consideration for, and planning grants that would advance a project that would, in the long run, benefit low and moderate income persons. As was stated in the public hearing notice, there's $49 million available, and that's going to be split between those 3 programs, mostly with the public infrastructure and public facilities. The planning side of it gets very little. But the funding limits under a public facilities program is $300,000. Under public infrastructure is $1 million, and under the planning grants is $50,000. These are competitive applications. There will be a number of applications received by the Office of Community Renewal. They will go through those and rate them and rank them against each other. So if you can still have a very good application, which we've had in the past, but it just more people benefit from a different application. So that's the one that gets funded. So that's something that we have to build into the application process. One of the stated objectives in this year's program is not to be the sole source of funding. And I think when you get to the regular board meeting, Resolution 65 speaks to that and makes this a very competitive application process for us at the county. As we have discussed at previous meetings, the county is considering submitting an application for Countryside Adult Home for repairs and improvements that were identified in what was known as the Beardsley Report. That report was funded through the planning process of the Small Cities Program in 1990, right? In 2019. So this is a continuation of their program. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else here that I need to cover statutorily. Again, the benefit to low and moderate income persons. Let's see. That really is required items that must be covered as part of the public hearing. And any comments received will have to be noted. Amanda, the only other thing I need is as part of this is, besides the public hearing that was published in the paper, were there any other notices published online or in social media? And if so, I'd need a verification that those were provided. So that's all I need to cover as part of the statutory requirements for the public hearing.
Thank you. That being said, I'll once again ask if there are any additional comments before we close the public hearing.
No, Chairwoman Sieber, nothing on YouTube on this issue.
One more time, any supervisors? And none being heard, we'll close the public hearing at this time. Just as a housekeeping item, there's a couple comments on the those of you that are remote. For those of us in the boardroom, Supervisor Stroud and Supervisor Beatty have asked that we speak as clearly and loudly into our microphones as we can so they can hear us a little more effectively. Thank you. At this time, it's the report from Chair of the Board. After our rules of the board and workshop training that we had this past month, Mary shared with us some tips about providing a report from all of our chairs as well as the chair of the board. So what I'd like to do here today is give you a summary of events. I don't believe that anyone here would like to hear the numerous meetings daily over the last 41 days, but I certainly would like to share a couple highlights with you. You've received 4 member updates in those 41 days that were very specific on different issues that certainly have arisen over the last month since I became the chair, and I hope you find that communication helpful. To highlight a few of those things, and we will also put a public address on the website as well that will summarize the events and the meetings that have taken place. And as chairs of committees, feel free, if you would like a more detailed report, you are more than welcome to submit that to the clerk of the board, or to just provide a summary and highlight the resolutions that are already in front of us in your packets today that have also been provided to the public. So that being said, just a quick overview. We have had an opportunity to meet, or I've had an opportunity to meet at length with our public health department to get up to speed quickly on the vaccine rollout, and of course that being our #1 priority in our response to the COVID pandemic right now. And I've also had a chance on numerous occasions to meet not only on phone or by Zoom or in person with many of you, but attend all of the committee meetings that we've had going on so far this month. We've had a workshop training that many of you attended that was recorded. So in case you missed it, you certainly can watch that on our YouTube channel. I certainly appreciate the efforts of both Amanda Allen and Mary Cassane in putting that training together. I think we all found it to be very informative. Our county administrators continue to work very hard with me to make sure that we're following our policies and procedures that are set forth in front of us, and also keeping all of us apprised on what's going on a regular basis here at the county. On top of that, we've had multiple meetings as it relates to the regional sports guidelines. That was something that, while posed significant challenges, it offered an opportunity for us in Warren County to meet and work regionally with multiple counties and their chairs and public health directors. It was incredibly informative, and hopefully the public feels that we have provided every opportunity, not only for success, but to ensure safety as well in our community. We've had a lot of discussions on our FOIL policy. And again, everyone was provided with an opportunity to attend training. It was live training with Chris O'Neill for FOIL training. And I subsequently sent out the training PowerPoint to all of you as well. We've spent a lot of time with a lot of hard work from the LDC and the board of directors there, along with Jim Siplon, Matt Fuller, and of course our own staff. Christy Miller's done an incredible job with historical data on the LDC, along with our county attorney's office and county administrator. We're working our way through those LDC questions and concerns and getting ready for that organizational meeting in March. We had a meeting yesterday that took place through NISAC with our federal representative. We had the opportunity to meet with Senator Schumer and talk more about the pandemic response. He's asked that we certainly share with our employees and with our community the federal initiatives that are taking place. And I know that our county administrator sent you all out an email last night with a recap from that. We've had an opportunity to meet for quite some time with our president of the National Association of Counties, Matt Chase. Of course, we know Matt's from Warren County. We were very pleased and accepted his generosity and support of Warren County in training that's taking place next month for NACO, and then also assisting us with opportunities and scholarships for some leadership training, along with general support. And he highlighted how happy and excited he is to have our county administrator part of the national work group on broadband. We've met with NISAC on multiple times, and of course, there's been many other various meetings that have taken place, not only with members of our community, but with each one, with each and every one of you, between phone calls, emails, and discussions. And I cannot express how appreciative I am of the support and the opportunities and the ideas that everyone has been sharing. And of course, our incredible staff who continue to work hard day in and day out. So that's just a summary of some of the things that have taken place. And certainly we'll provide that information in more detail to both Amanda Allen and on our website as well. And I know you hear from me on a very regular basis, but again, the phone line is always open. I welcome you to share your concerns, questions, and speak directly to me at any point in time that I can help further our board as a whole moving forward. So thank you for the opportunity. That concludes my report today. I'd like to move on to the reports by our committee chairs. As stated in the rules of our board and our training that took place last month, we will have a committee report by chairs of committee. You certainly have the opportunity during announcements, if there are additional information that does not relate to the chairs, to please share that at that appropriate time. So at this point, it only seems appropriate to go in alphabetical order. And I'm happy to call on each one of our committee chairs. So Supervisor Beatty is here to report on the monthly rotation schedule, but he started off the executive committee. He also had finance and governmental operations and advocacy. Supervisor Beatty.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The executive committee met for the first time about 10 days ago. As you noted, it will be a rotating chairmanship of that committee. The next person will be, I believe, Supervisor Bramer will be chairing the executive committee next month, if it's needed at all. There are a few resolutions in your packet. Resolution 24, making supplemental appropriation change. And then there's also resolution 62 to 65 in your packet. 62 is authorizing the appropriation of funds from the general fund, unappropriated surplus to the information technology budget. That was Mr. Colvin needing the money for cybersecurity and so forth. And we found the funding source. It will be a roll call vote. Also, 63, Resolution 63, amending the Warren County FOIL policy and authorizing the chair of the Board of Supervisors to designate the prior chairs of the Board of Supervisors to decide and sign FOIL appeals when there is a conflict of interest. 64, amending resolution of number 20 of 2021, appointing members to the Warren County and Washington County Industrial Development Agency and Civic Development Corporation to include the Washington County super appointments. And finally, 65, resolution to commit to funding to address the needs of Countryside Adult Home pursuing to the Beardsley Report. Mr. Lamont was very clear and precise. Obviously, we're applying for a $300,000 grant. And if we do receive that, we will look for funding for an additional $1 million. I believe that's 200 something thousand dollars in reserve right now to upgrade the Countryside Adult Home, which is very precious to obviously all of us and to our seniors here in the county. That concludes the executive committee reports and actually resolutions that are before us today. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Beatty. Supervisor Bramer, Personnel Administration and Higher Education.
Thank you, Chairwoman. I will direct you guys to the resolutions in your packet, which start at 48 for personnel and go through 54. I'm not going to go through each individual one. If you have any questions, I'm sure we can go through it at discussion time. I do want to point out too, Resolution 48 does set forth changes to our tables of organization, creating some new positions. We talked about those through committee. Hopefully everyone is okay with all of those. And the second one, number 49, is a change to our travel training really and vehicle policy that talks about, that updates our policy to make sure that people realize they need to go through a certain procedure, even if they're going to a Zoom training. So they're not technically traveling anywhere, but we still want to know that they're keeping actually have that in our processes. Also, as personnel chair, I did attend a meeting with Yeager and Flynn discussing our insurance. That seems to be all in line. Everything is going okay there. I had a meeting with a couple of our outside counsel regarding litigation. I've also had several meetings with Jackie Figueroa in our HR department and many others regarding personnel matters such as our performance evaluations, exit interviews, training opportunities, and of course our Employee of the Month program, which is back in place. So we're excited about that one. I've also been having meetings with Don Lehman and others about our cooperation with SUNY and trying to bring a little bit more visibility to SUNY Adirondack here in our county. And I also chaired the NISAC Resolutions Committee. That's not part of my personnel duties, but I thought I'd report on it now. And as the chairwoman mentioned, we will be looking forward at our updating our FOIL policy over the next few months. So keep that in mind as we go forward. And of course, if anyone has any questions or wants more details on anything I just mentioned, please feel free to give me a call or email. Thank you. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Supervisor. Supervisor Conover, Public Works.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. The Public Works Committee has in front of you resolutions 40 through 45 for your consideration. The first, number 40, deals with the awarding of bids for road work. The two successful low bidders were Peckham and Newcastle. Mr. Hajos is on the phone if you have any questions regarding those bids. Item 41 is authorizing an agreement with Roselle for crane services. Should crane services be required, that's a unit bid. They're on standby, so that we find ourselves in a situation needing crane services. We have somebody that we can go to. Number 42 is authorizing change orders with Newcastle for construction services for capital projects as listed. Mr. Hajos can answer any questions regarding those change orders, but they are do fall under highway grants and are largely covered 95% by the grants. So the change orders would be covered by that as well. Item 43, Public Works declaring Warren County a seeker lead agency and issuing a neg deck on a bridge replacement project over Finkelbrook in the town of Bolton. Item 44 is Public Works amending Resolution 423 of 20, authorizing an agreement with the lowest responsibility bidder for fire suppression, inspection, and maintenance of our fueling facilities. Important public safety matter. And item 45 is a resolution supporting the Village of Lake George's request to change the name of Westbrook Road to Senator Elizabeth O. C. Little Boulevard. And that concludes my report. Other than I just do want to comment quickly that at the appropriate time, I do have some amendments for Resolution 63, which are in front of you. As you know, I'm not supportive of this because I don't understand why our officers are refusing to want to bear these responsibilities. But nevertheless, if it's the intent of the board that this fall to the previous chairs, then I think that that some clarification of this is going to be required, and I will offer the amendments at that time. Just so you know, it's nothing earth-shattering. I think that if a chair recuses themselves, they should do that in writing and cite the reasons why they're recusing themselves. It doesn't have to be anything onerous, and it could be actually a standard form prepared by Amanda. And the second is that the clarification of how it falls to the various chairs needs some clarification, and that I think it falls.
This is an excellent opportunity to have that during discussion.
Right, no, I'm not either. I just want the board to understand prior to what the amendments are, and I think that clarifies it.
We
Thank
can
you.
have that discussion at the time of roll
Thank you.
call. I'll also ask that our county administrator comment in context as well as our county attorney if need be at that time. So thank you very much, Supervisor Conover. Supervisor Diamond, Public Safety.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Public Safety Committee met on January 29th. We did not have an action agenda from the Sheriff's Department, but we did have one from the Office of Emergency Services. You have 3 resolutions in front of you today. I'm asking you to support. Resolution 37 is an application for a grant to be submitted up to $100,000 with no county match. Resolution 38 is a application to be submitted for reimbursements for personal services and fringe benefits for the position of Officer of Emergency Services Coordinator. And Resolution 39 is an application to be submitted for a grant up to $50,000, but if accepted, the response will be 25% back. That concludes my report. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Supervisor Diamond. Supervisor Dickinson, Environmental Concerns from Real Property and Tax Services.
Hello. Takes me a while. I have, first off, I want to thank Ron for introducing Resolution 45 for Betty's Boulevard in Lake George. It was a request from the mayor. And so they want to do that. He's hoping to have some kind of official event later in the spring when the weather's a little better. In real property, we have one Resolution 60. It's a payment to Atlantic Testing. It's for the Mullen fiasco. They took longer to get the place cleaned up for any number of reasons, and therefore Atlantic Testing had to come out for a longer stretch of time. And that's what this is. We as in Lexi, has negotiated with all the parties, and this is the final outcome of that negotiation. And I have nothing further. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Dickinson. Supervisor Driscoll, Human Services.
Thank you, Chairwoman. This morning in your packets are 3 resolutions from the Human Services Committee. Resolution 34 deals with distribution of youth program funding. Resolution 35 is an agreement with the Council for the Prevention to provide youth court services. Please note that that's an agreement for 2020. It was the paperwork was submitted in December, and Chris Hanchett wasn't able to get that over to the board until December, and that's why it says 2020. He's currently working on the 2021 agreement, and we should hear about that sometime in early spring. Resolution 36 is the partial reimbursement of recreation program funds to specific towns within the county. Our next Human Services Committee meeting will be held this coming Monday, February 26th, on or about 12:30. That's after a short, I guess, lunch break. At that meeting, Amy McByrne from Countryside Adult Home will be sharing some information. Social Services and Veteran Services will not be present, but they have already some full agendas for the March meeting of the Human Services Committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Frazier, Health Services.
Thank you. Health Services met on January the 19th, and in front of you have 5 resolutions. Resolution 29 authorizes continuation of a lease agreement with Hudson Headwaters for the use of space at their Health Center for Public Health Monthly WIC Clinic. Resolution 30 appoints Paul Bachman, MD, as Medical Director for the Health Services Division of Home Care. 31 appoints William Borges, MD, as Medical Director for the Health Services Division of Public Health. 32 appoints members of the local Early Intervention Coordinating Council for the Education of Physically Handicapped Children's Program. And 33 appoints members of Professional Advisory Committee for the Health Services Department. And our committee will meet on Monday, the 22nd. That's my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Frazier. Supervisor Garrity, Tourism and Occupancy Tax, Coordination, and EMS.
Per the directions of our rules, I submitted my report in writing to the clerk of the board. So anybody wants it can get it from Amanda. I submitted it, but I will give you a quick synopsis. We had 4 discussions on tourism of different kinds. There are 2 resolutions in your packet. Resolution 46 for an agreement with Benchmark Printing Incorporated, and Resolution 47 authorizing an intermunicipal agreement with the Village of Lake George for the information or promotional space at the Visitor Center. Everything else I summarized and I sent it in writing per the instructions of the board to the clerk this morning. So, and I have copies if anybody wants to see it.
Thank you, Supervisor Garrity. Supervisor Hogan, Economic Growth and Development.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Economic Growth and Development met on January 20th. We discussed the grant applications you heard about in the public hearing, and out of that came Resolution 28, which I hope you will support. These grant applications will benefit several communities throughout the county and are important for each of them, as well as the improvements at Countryside. And to that, please also support Resolution 65. On January 20th, we had updates from Liza Oxendorf from the Warren County Workforce and Training Administration. If you are not familiar with what her organization does, I encourage you to visit their website. There is a tremendous amount of information there that is useful and for the people that we work for. And I know that I frequently refer people to that website, and I hope you too will get familiar enough that you can do the same. And finally, I just want to say, and I hope it's not off topic, I'm so stinking excited that Sarah got Employee of the Month. Well deserved. And thank you all who made it happen. She works hard for us and she's a rock star. So that's all.
Thank you, Supervisor Hogan. Supervisor McGowan, County Facilities.
Thank you, Ms. Chairwoman. County facilities met on January 20th. We didn't really have much, but we did have a authorizing a submission of a grant application to the Federal Aviation Administration and New York State Department of Transportation for the construction of the to rehabilitate the taxi lighting project. It is a 5%. I believe it's 5%. Yep. Local share, which we have to kick in 24,000 out of the 480. So I'm looking for your support on that to keep the lights on at our county airport. Thank you, and that's all.
Thank you, Supervisor McGowan. Supervisor Merlino, Parks Operation and Management.
No report this.
Thank you, Supervisor Merlino. Supervisor Shepler, Criminal Justice.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. The Criminal Justice Committee met on January 19th, and the district attorney was there for a presentation. The privilege of the floor was given to the Warren County District Attorney, who presented a request to extend the current contract of the New York State Division of Criminal Justice Services for the age prosecution grant in the amount of $57,285 for the term of December 4, 2020 through March 31, 2021. The grant was being extended for the six-month period rather than having to reapply. This was due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The DA stated that his office would also be applying for the next round of grant funding this spring. A motion was made and seconded and approved by the entire board. This resolution is before the board today, resolution number 27, and we're asking for your support. The DA also gave the committee a summary of some of the many executive orders which have impacted the function of the grand jury. Mr. Carasone continued to explain that because of COVID-19, there was no longer going to be multiple days of court, but they would instead be done virtually. He continued to explain that as of April, all state police would be required to be outfitted by body cameras that would be providing a significant amount of information which would need to be processed. There were no referrals or pending items. There was no public comments, and the Criminal Justice Committee was adjourned at 9:15. Next meeting for the Criminal Justice Committee is going to be Monday, February 22nd at 9 a.m. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Supervisor Shepler. Supervisor Smith, Extension Service.
She's muted.
Can you do it?
Okay. Yes, I talked with Dr. James Seeley, introduced myself. We have a meeting scheduled, a Zoom meeting for 6 p.m. on February 22nd. At this point, they're doing a community parenting program for 5 weeks, 3/2 through 3/30. It's applicable for children of any age, parenting of children of any age. On 3/7, there's a 4-H basics air pistol seminar, and that is from 1 to 4, and that's for children ages 10 years old and up that have completed the 4-H basic air rifle class. On 3/11, from 11 to 12, there's another program fostering healthy sleeping habits. And that's all I have at this time. I will be attending the meeting on the Zoom meeting on February 22nd, and hopefully all others on the committee will be there. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Smith. Supervisor Thomas is unable to be with us this morning. I'm sure I'll be submitting his committee report directly to Amanda Allen. And at this point in time, also, I would like to go back to Supervisor Beatty. Inadvertently, finance was not reported on. Supervisor Beatty.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yeah, I was just waiting patiently for my turn again. In your packets, Resolution 25 and 55 through 61 came from the Finance Committee. It's amending Warren County budget for 2021 for various departments within the county. That's number 25. 55 is about the countryside adult home and authorizing the appropriation of funds from the county Countryside Rehabilitation Reserve to the Countryside Adult Home budget to fund boiler repairs at the Countryside Adult Home. So we have to amend the Warren County budget. There'll be a roll call on establishing, this is 56, roll call establishing 2021 and 2022 road fund projects and amending Warren County budget for 2021. Obviously, road projects are near and dear to every single town and every single resident in this county, and a basic requirement of good government, in my opinion. Resolution 57, a roll call, also information technology, authorizing the appropriation of funds from the Computer Reserve Fund to various department budgets. We need to amend the Warren County budget. And 58 will also be a roll call, increasing capital fund project number H254 Fire Training Center project, authorizing transfer of funds and amending Warren County budget again. 59, finance planning, community develop, authorizing county treasurer to close CD 74, which is Countryside Adult Home Project. And 60, roll call on real property tax services, authorizing the appropriation of additional funds from the Environmental Testing Reserve Fund to the real property tax services budget to pay for the Atlantic Testing Laboratories for additional this project monitoring fees for the town of Queensbury, tax map parcel number 302-8-1-2. It's a Bay Road project, and amending the county budget again. And finally, resolution 61, treasurer canceling or correcting of amendments and refunds chargebacks of taxes for pilot payments made in 2020. And at this time, I think Mike Swan's in the room, correct?
Yes.
Okay, I am going to have Mr. Swan come up to the podium. Speak clear, Mike, because all of us have bad hearing out here in the Netherlands. And I will allow you to have the podium if there's no objection, and give us any updates you may have.
That one will do. First thing, Madam Chair, is it acceptable for me to proceed?
Thank you, Treasurer Swan. Absolutely.
All right. Well, I kind of was thrown off base a little bit this morning with the email that went out from Administrator Ryan about the stimulus and reimbursement packages. It kind of took the thunder out of some of the things I was going to talk about, because if that goes through, I may not, what I'm talking about now, we may not even need to do. But the crux of the thing was I had talked several times about borrowing money for highway purposes and or for Countryside. And we had worked up some figures, and with Kevin Hajos telling me that he is not going to be doing any of the work this summer that we would need to borrow money for, that we would postpone until next spring borrowing any money for highway purposes and or Countryside, because that would mean we wouldn't have to pay any money back until 2023. At that point, we have a bunch of debt coming off of the books, which means that we would almost be budget neutral at that point. So rather than having to come up with $1 million extra to pay back a 5-year loan, we would almost be breaking even. But in the email that went out this morning, the amount of money that they're talking about is staggering to me. That's pretty much all I have to say. The other thing I was going to talk about is all the vibes I've heard from the state about the budget, but the amount of money that the state is going to be getting, I don't know if there's going to be the problems there either. Initially, they were talking about, once again, taking some more money out of our sales tax and stop and cutting back on the amount of money that they give us for the various programs. Right now, it's kind of all up in the air, I would say, wouldn't you, Ryan?
I would. And in terms of the 5% state aid cut that's in the state budget, NISAC has been asking for whether it would be possible to restore that 5% if a large federal aid package comes through. So in that, I think that question is still very much up in the air.
Any questions about anything else that I can answer for anyone?
Supervisor Dickinson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Michael, I've had this question posed to you before. How much of our sales tax money can the state just take?
Well, from what I'm seeing, they're pretty much taking whatever they want.
That doesn't seem right to me.
Well, my personal feeling on this is it's unconstitutional, and I feel, this is my opinion, that somebody, if this county or all the counties together, should be suing the state to get that money back. But that's not a legal opinion, that's my opinion.
That's close enough for me, Michael. I'm all for it. This is ridiculous that they just take whatever they want out of our sales tax. The other thing is we budget and depend on that sales tax, and when they do this, they really put us in a bad position.
Treasurer Swan, did you want to respond before going on to Supervisor Beatty, who has a question?
I guess nothing more than just my opinion is that it's unconstitutional and we should be fighting it. That's my stand on it. I've been saying that for quite a while.
I agree.
Supervisor Beatty.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Treasurer Swan and I had this conversation just this week, Dennis. The state takes 57.4% of every sales tax dollar. So every dollar Warren County brings in, they take 57 cents, just a hair over that. And that was before the pandemic, and basically Pandora's box been opened that the state can now grab almost anything they want without repercussions. Treasurer Swan told me in his opinion that it was unconstitutional. That may be something that we as a board should look into, because I agree with Dennis that when we have budgeted items and depend on X amount of sales tax dollars and it can be taken away arbitrarily, I'm not sure how you run a county and supply the services when that can happen. So maybe we discuss that further. I'm just throwing that out with my support for Mr. Swan. Thank you.
Thank you. Treasurer Swan, did you want to reply to that before Supervisor Bramer?
No, I'm fine.
Okay. Supervisor Bramer?
Thank you so much. I was going to say that at the NISAC Resolutions Committee meeting, we did pass a resolution, I think they've done it before too, calling on the legislature to end the practice of taking our sales tax money. So perhaps that's something we can bring through government ops and advocacy. And I would suggest if we're going to push harder, we do need to have a coalition of other counties rather than just us, Warren County, trying to step out on our own to sue someone. But definitely think our first step should be to go to advocacy, and we can use this NISAC resolution. Thanks.
Supervisor Weil?
Madam Chair, thank you very much. I'd like to go back, if you don't mind, to the road bonds that I thought we were going to be floating. And the reason was because interest rates were so low. I wonder if this is still something we should consider because of the fact that interest rates are so low. And I'm not sure what we have planned in terms of road improvements, but my background on this says that we have some roads that are in desperate need, some roads that may need improvement in a couple of years. And the point is, it's much easier to take care of roads before they degrade to a certain point where you have to spend significantly more money. So I'm wondering if we want to do a more aggressive paving work and repair work and float this money in a bond, as was originally discussed, to get ahead of the game. So I'm not sure if you want to address that or if it's more for Kevin, but I thought that's what we were planning on doing because the rates were so low.
Treasurer Swan?
All right, two things. I just want to respond to Supervisor Bramer real quickly. I have, under good authority, the unofficial commitments, I guess is the best way to put it, that there would be multiple counties that would join in almost immediately on a lawsuit concerning this, right? Now, Supervisor Weil, when I discussed this with Kevin Hayjos, we were trying to get some projects, extra projects done
in 2021. And he's the one that should explain why that isn't coming out quite the way we had originally talked about it. And as a result of that, he will not need any of the bond money that we would need for 2021. And I don't want to borrow $4 or $5 million and sit on it for a year and have to pay $1 million interest. That's the main reason. Yes, I agree. And that's why we kind of pushed this originally, was because of the low interest rate. But I just can't in good conscience say, okay, let's borrow $4 or $5 million, pay $1 million in interest, and not use it for a year. That to me just doesn't make good sense.
Thanks, Mike. I'll reach out to Kevin.
Thank you. Supervisor Bruno.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Regarding the sales tax in the state, I agree with Treasurer Swan, Supervisor Dickinson, Supervisor Beatty. It's ridiculous. Why should we be penalized for the state's inept and poor fiscal management when we try to do our best? And as you alluded to, we budget sales tax revenue. We use that to control our budget, if you will. So I just think it's ridiculous, and we really ought to think long and hard about trying to do something about that, and maybe contacting other counties and, some kind of class action lawsuit against the state or what have you. I'm not sure how that would proceed, but to me, it's just ridiculous. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions at this time for our treasurer?
Well,
Supervisor Garrity.
just one quick one. I read the numbers, they're staggering in our favor if that goes through, but how realistic is that?
The answer to that question, I think, is going to rest in Washington, D.C. It's whether that package as constructed can get through both houses of Congress. I think if it gets through both houses of Congress, you'll see it get signed.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, it's staggering amount in our favor.
We can't hear Kevin.
I said it's a staggering amounts in our favor, that's for sure. And I agree with everybody else that commented about the sales tax. It's a very difficult way to do your budgets for the county or for your towns or anybody. So I'm with them.
Thank you, Treasurer Swan, for your report this morning, for answering those questions, and Administrator Moore for answering them as well.
That concludes my report, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Supervisor Beatty. Report by County Administrator.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As always, we have an announcement this morning of the milestone employee anniversaries. With 30 years of service at the county is Sharon Morrison from Countryside Adult Home, and the entire Countryside staff is just doing such a great job with COVID. With 20 years, we have 4 individuals: Robin McLaughlin from Public Health, Lieutenant Steve Stockdale from the Sheriff's Department, and from Social Services, Mary Klaber and John Lord, all 4 of those with 20 years. Congratulations to everybody. Thank you for your dedication to this county. We all certainly appreciate it. We have one late starter resolution today. It's labeled floor resolution number 1. It's printed out on your desk for you. And this is the appointment of Mr. Jay Ogden as our fire coordinator. Jay has been working in that position for just about 2 weeks now. We initially had this on as an item that would be authorized February 22nd, which is Monday, the first workday after the board meeting. The Personnel Committee, however, asked that we fill that position sooner if we could, and indeed we could. Jay is originally from this area. We're proud to have him back home, and he was recently in Charlotte, North Carolina, where he was the 2020 Firefighter of the Year, which was a huge honor, and it's an honor for us to have Jay here doing this role. We thank Brian LaFleur for his many years of service and the position that he's left the department in, which is a very good position for Jay and Anne Marie to come in. Thank you, Brian, for everything you've done for this county. Again, that's floor resolution number 1. I'll speak briefly to a couple of the points that the treasurer addressed. First, with Countryside, if you recall, during the executive committee meeting, we had a discussion about reimbursement through Department of Health. I do have bad news on that. The Department of Health no longer reimburses capital expenses for these facilities. So they used to do it on a straight line depreciation basis. They have since changed the regulation for anything that has a life of over 2 years and costs more than $500. They will not reimburse for that. So that's the answer to that question. In terms of the tax, the sales tax sweeps, I spoke about this time last year, maybe earlier, and I don't remember which one came first. I think the distressed hospital sweep came first. And then I said at the time that what happened was state tax law governs where the sales tax collections go. Article 28 deals with the state's 4%, and Article 29 deals with the localities and what the localities are able to raise. For the first time ever, early last year, the state rewrote a section of Article 29 to divert some of that revenue back to the state. I said at the time that I thought it was a slippery slope and that it would happen again. And it happened again not more than a couple of months later when the state diverted the AIM payments, aid and assistance to municipalities that go to the towns and villages, used to come out of the state treasury. The state sourced it instead out of the Article 29 tax revenue. So I do agree that it's problematic if this practice continues. I hope it doesn't. But just to add some.
Administrator Moore,
Yes.
I am so sorry to interrupt you. I hate to do that. Supervisor Stroud has stated that he's unable to hear you. So perhaps just, he can't hear you.
Am I not speaking loud enough?
Supervisor Stroud, can you hear him now?
Testing.
I did not report that I could not hear Ryan. My report was I could not hear Mike.
Okay, sorry about that. So I don't recall where I was. I think I was done making the point about that, but it's something that we will watch. I am also going through the state budget methodically when I can. The 30-day amendments are supposed to come out today. So when those come out, if they're not out already, that'll be the full picture of the executive budget. I've got a report that is I've been drafting as we go. I'll get that report out to all the supervisors so you'll know all the items of concern in the executive budget, and it's being kicked over to the state legislature. So we will be able to communicate with our state legislators on the priorities that we have. I'll get that out to you hopefully this weekend. The treasurer mentioned Senator Schumer's presentation to all the county leaders yesterday. I did send details. I don't want to fully rehash that, but I will say that this is a $350 billion with a B stimulus bill, and it does have direct aid. That means that the aid that's supposed to go to these local governments, which is about 40% of the $350 million, that aid will not pass through the state. It will come directly to the local governments. The concern was that it may be delayed if it goes through the state. If this legislation does pass and gets enacted into law by the president's signature, we will get those payments within 60 days. That's how the legislation is written. And it is a significant amount of money. It can be, the uses for the aid are very flexible and broad. It can be to replace lost revenue from last year. It can also be to invest in your local economy. We'll get more into the weeds as to what you can and cannot use it for, but it is pretty broad. The amount for Warren County is tentatively slated at $12,497,358. I'll give you just two other examples. Glens Falls is $11,269,189, and the town of Queensbury is $5,076,077. So these are very large amounts of money. We will track this bill and see how it does in Washington. We do thank Senator Schumer for making the time to join that NISAC call and share information with all of us. We do appreciate the real-time information. In addition, on Tuesday, typically the counties will have a call regarding vaccines, and Larry Schwartz will typically handle that on behalf of the governor's office. On Tuesday, Governor Cuomo led the meeting himself, which was nice. We had the opportunity, some of us, to ask the governor questions about it. But essentially, the piece that I wanted to report back on that was that there's an acknowledgement that this has been a difficult time with the scarce supply of vaccine. And we were thanked as local partners in helping the state get through that. But because of new projections of vaccine coming out from the manufacturers and from the federal government, they're projecting that we will have 2 doses for every person in this state by the end of June. So that's a dramatic improvement. I hope that the supply does live up to that standard. And if we do get that amount of vaccine, we'll be ready to give it out. We have a potential mass vaccination site up the hill here that the state helped us set up, ready to go whenever the supply warrants scheduling appointments there. And we've partnered up with the state to make sure that we have people to work that site. So we're optimistic about this. If we can keep to an aggressive timetable, we may be able to have some semblance of normality this summer. We're looking forward to that, and we're optimistic about it. Let's see. We do also have, the governor also told us on Tuesday that he has specific information as to residents of different geographies that have been vaccinated. This was new information that was provided to us. I asked for the stats for Warren County. We're talking about people who live in Warren County who have received at least the first dose and are in line for the second dose. So you have 4,000, this is as of February 16th. So these numbers have since improved. But as of 3 days ago, we had 4,585 people that had already gotten both doses. And in terms of the universe that have gotten the first dose, 9,131. Now, of our population, which of course, our population includes people under 16 that are not even eligible to get vaccinated. But out of our total population, that represents 14.3% of our population 3 days ago was already either fully vaccinated or on the road to being fully vaccinated. It's one of the strongest performing geographies in the state, we've been told. We're very proud of that, and we intend to get those numbers even further up and to do it as quickly as we can. So good news there. And finally, I just wanted to go back to the vaccine supply issues that we're experiencing right now. There is a good resource for anybody who's a member of the public, and certainly any of the supervisors or mayors who are listening. All you got to do is Google NYS vaccine rollout, and you're going to see a link to phased distribution of the vaccine. That's a web page that DOH is maintaining. And there's a little button on that web page called provider guidance. That provider guidance, it's 8 pages long if you want to read through it, but it tells you that we have a phenomenon going right now where there are different lanes. You have hospitals in one lane, pharmacies in another, and local health departments in a third lane. And we have populations that we're directed to serve. Hospitals are doing, they have to prioritize the unvaccinated healthcare workers. Then when they're done with those, they're allowed to go on to phase 1A people who don't work at the hospital. And then they go to OPWDD congregate care. And then after they get through those groups, then the hospitals are allowed to do 65 plus. Pharmacies and physician groups, they're directed to do their own patient-facing staff first, and then and only then, when they get through their own staff, they go on to do 65 plus. Local health departments, we're directed to do essential worker populations that have been named by the state in phase 1B, and that's not as many people as you would hope would be named essential workers, and we're working through that to try to get more groups into 1B. After that, you have residents and staff of congregate settings that are operated by OPWDD. And then after that, we have to do comorbidities. Now you notice that 65 plus is not on our list. That's because they're making us work through these other populations before we get into 65 plus. I know that's been a cause of concern for many people in the community, and it's confusing, but that is what the law requires us to do. And on page 2 of this, I'm going to quote directly from it. COVID-19 vaccine must be given according to the prioritization plan established by the New York State Department of Health. The vaccine cannot be used for any other populations or groups other than those listed as eligible in this guidance. And there's a fine for violating that. It's $1 million. So it's a frustrating situation. They're trying to respond to the fact that there's not enough supply and that there are priority groups to get vaccinated first. The solution to this is more supply. The solution to this is getting the mass site open here and in other areas. It's all dependent on supply. And we did get good news on supplies. So optimistic about all of it. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Are there questions for the county administrator?
I will. I'll send that link.
I just made that request as well as having Don Lehman send that out to the public as well.
Yeah, and that link is going to update every week. The DOH updates that guidance each week, so it's only going to be good for another couple of days. But I'll send you the link to the page that has the button on it that you can click.
Supervisor Driscoll.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Thank you, Mr. Moore, for your comprehensive report. I'd just like to add that that Dee Park from our Office for the Aging is working cooperatively with Janelle Jones and her staff. And as soon as we see the green light that seniors within Warren County, based on their age, will be part of that process. So, I mean, we're getting ready. I guess that's my message to many of the seniors. I have a number of constituents who are concerned and mixed messages out there and mixed areas where they're getting services and we may not be, but we're on top of it. And I'd like to commend Office for the Aging and everyone part of that team that's making sure that vulnerable populations, as soon as they can be served, will be. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Hearing no other questions, report by County Attorney.
Good morning. This past month, I attended committee meetings on January 19th, 20th, 25th, and 29th. I presented at the workshop on February 3rd. I met with the chairwoman on January 19th, 27th, 29th, February 1st, and February 12th. I also attended meetings with the LDC, Soil and Water, DPW, Tourism, and Real Property. I drafted 4 memorandums of law and numerous advisory emails, drafted and reviewed the resolutions which are before you today, drafted and reviewed numerous contracts, as well as provided advice to multiple department heads and supervisors.
Thank you. Are there questions for the county attorney? Thank you. Hearing none, the reading of communications by our clerk.
We have the report of criminal and family workloads for November and December of 2020 from the probation department. And we received 3 checks from Capital District Regional Off-Track Betting Court. The December 2020 payment in the amount of $1,702, and the 2020 Regional Benefit Distribution Installments number 2 and 3, each in the amount of $2,408. And I emailed copies of all those to the board yesterday.
Thank you. Reading of resolutions.
Resolutions number 24 through 65 were distributed to the board and posted to the Warren County website on or before Tuesday, February 16th, which met the distribution deadline specified in the rules of the board. Resolution number 61 was amended after mailing, and the revisions were distributed to the board yesterday. A motion is needed to approve the revision as presented. This on 61, that's on allowing the treasurer to approve the canceling, correcting assessments of refunds and chargebacks for the pilot payments made in 2020. When this came to committee, there was a request to specify in the resolution that this would be effective January 1st, 2020. And that was not in the resolution when it first came out. The reason for this is because they need to record those in 2020, not 2021. We just need a motion to approve that. The correction, not the resolution.
Okay. Could I have a motion to approve the correction to that, please? The motion is made by Supervisor McGowan, seconded by Supervisor Molino. All in favor?
Aye.
Any objections? Abstentions? That motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, and there is also the matter of floor resolution number 1 before you. That's appointing the county fire coordinator. As it's outlined in this resolution, there's the local law which establishes the position of fire coordinator, and it states in there that the director can appoint the fire coordinator with approval from the board. So that's this resolution is approving that appointment. Yep, and this because this didn't go through committee, you will need a waiving of the rules and a 2/3 majority, then a simple a vote and a simple majority to bring it to the floor.
Supervisor Bramer, are you making a motion to waive the rules?
Yep.
That's seconded by Supervisor Garrity. All those in favor?
Aye.
Abstain? The motion carries. Thank you.
Now motion to get it on the floor.
May I have a motion to get it on the floor? Supervisor Shepler, seconded by Supervisor McGowan. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? The motion carries. Thank you.
Floor resolution number 1 is now resolution number 66.
I believe we did have a roll call request for resolution number 63. At that time, I'll open discussion regarding resolution number 63, and for purposes of context, but ask our county administrator to please provide that information at this time before discussion.
Sure, I'd be happy to. If you take a look at the Freedom of Information Law, it's Article 6 of the New York State Public Officers Law. And Section 4 deals with FOIL appeals. I'll read to you from the section. Except as provided in subdivision 5 of this section, any person denied access to a record may within 30 days appeal in writing such denial to the head, chief executive, or governing body of the entity or the person therefore designated by such head, chief executive, or governing body, who shall have within 10 business days of the receipt of such appeal fully explain in writing to the person requesting the record of the reasons for further denial or provide access to the record sought. So what that's saying is that the chair of the Board of Supervisors is the FOIL appeal officer. That's also reflected in the FOIL policy that's adopted by the Warren County Board of Supervisors. So as a matter of state law and as a matter of our local rules that have been duly adopted by this board, the chair of the board is the FOIL appeals officer, regardless of whether or not the FOIL itself has anything to do with the chair of the board. If the chair of the board believes that there is a conflict and that those duties ought to be assigned out to somebody else, the chair of the board has the ability to do that. What we're seeking to do in this resolution is to amend the county's FOIL policy to put in writing who those duties fall to, so that it's not just a random, assignment of these duties every time there's a conflict. And this doesn't happen a whole lot. We're only talking about a handful of times where you would have a situation where the chair of the board has a conflict on a FOIL appeal. So what we're trying to do is take randomness out of this and actually put it into policy. The only individual who cannot serve as FOIL appeals officer is the records access officer. That's me, because if there's an appeal, it's an appeal of my determination as the records access officer. I also utilize the county attorney's office in making determinations on the initial FOIL. Many times I will ask Ryan Dickey, for the most part, what is able to be redacted and what is not. So from that perspective, it's also, we believe, not appropriate to have the county attorney serve as the FOIL appeal officer, because, as I said, very often the attorney's office is giving advice to me on how to handle the FOIL in the first place. So that's the position that we're in. We're looking for an individual or an office to designate as a conflict FOIL appeal officer. And I believe that there's been several iterations of how that could go. It started off with a suggestion that the clerk of the board do that, but the committee had a discussion, and the resolution in front of you today is what emerged out of the committee discussion.
Thank you, County Administrator Moore. At this time, I will open up for resolution number 63 for discussion. Supervisor Conover.
You unmute yourself.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, it's no secret that I'm not thrilled with this, but candidly, if Supervisor Thomas and Supervisor Garrity, who I have the greatest respect for, are prepared to go along with this, then I'm certainly willing to join them in this amendment. Why that's required is still a mystery to me, but that be as it may. I do have some amendments, though, that I think would help this legislation. Number one, I do not believe that it should, basically what, if you remember what Ryan read, he read that and then it was an or the governing body. And that's what's happening now. This is in front of the governing body. That's all of us. And so I think this construct should be, should there be a conflict of interest on the part of a chairperson of the board, that chairperson would, of course, recuse themselves. And I think that should be in writing. I think there should be something formal in writing. It doesn't have to be exact, it doesn't have to be large. Just something to the clerk of the board that says, I have a conflict and therefore I'm recusing myself. It shouldn't be done word of mouth. There should be something formal in the file. That's number one. Number two, the designation of the appeal officer then it should fall to this board. It's no longer a designation. It should no longer be a designation of somebody that has a conflict of interest. In other words, we are by this legislation saying, should there be a conflict of interest, the responsibilities today, for example, would fall to Frank Thomas. And I assume what the legislation means is, should Frank Thomas have a conflict of interest, then it would fall to Supervisor Conover. And if Conover had the conflict, then it would fall to Supervisor Garrity. But the legislation doesn't say that. And so I think that my recommendation on an amendment should be that this should read that authorizing the designation of prior chairs. It should delete all reference to the chairperson of the board delegating anything. We are delegating it right now today if we pass this. And I consider that a minor change, actually. And within the body of the text, we should delete that as well. We are designating the appeal officer. And within the body of the text, we should also add that what triggers all of this is the submittal in writing to the clerk of the board, a conflict of interest on the part of our chair. Once the clerk receives that, then it just autopilot, it goes to Mr. Thomas. If not Mr. Thomas, Mr. Conover. If not Mr. Conover, Mr. Garrity. And so I would recommend that this resolution be amended. Respectfully, it should be amended to reflect the designation by this board of the responsibilities should there be a conflict of interest. And it should also spell out, just for the file, the formality of this, which is something in writing received by the clerk of the board. And that would be the amendment to this resolution that I would offer here today. Otherwise, it really says that the chairperson can designate, and I don't think somebody that has a conflict of interest should be designating anyone to review something where there's a conflict of interest involved. That's something we should do as the governing body. And also, I think that that we should spell out the process, which is receipt of a conflict. And at that point in time, the clerk would then turn it over to a previous chair. And sequentially down the line, should that chair have a conflict of interest. And that would be the amendment that I would offer here today. But before I introduce that as an amendment, I would like to hear from the rest of the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Conover. In response to your question, I'm just going to ask that the county administrator, without objection, answer your question. And then I see Supervisor Bramer's hand up, and then I see Supervisor Strauss. Administrator Moore?
If you wouldn't mind restating the question, Supervisor.
Okay, we'll come right back to that, Ron, after everyone has an opportunity. Per the rules of our board, everyone gets one chance, and then we'll come back to Ryan. Supervisor Bramer.
I'm sure some will be shocked, but I agree with Supervisor Conover. Those are good changes. I do disagree a little bit, though. I think he's misreading the resolved paragraph, because it says that the Warren County FOIL policy is amended to identify the prior chairs of the Board of Supervisors. So it's already saying that it is the policy will be amended, not that the chair is going to get to designate people. So maybe we do need to put in a little bit more language that says that if the policy will reflect that it is the prior chairs it says in order of reverse succession. So I'm not exactly sure what change you want to the language of the resolution. But I do think maybe some wordsmithing of the policy itself. I don't know how we put this into the resolution, but the other thing is there should be another resolve paragraph above that that says that when the chair has a conflict, he or she will notify the clerk of the board. And then the policy kicks in that will go to the next previous chair.
Thank you, Supervisor Bramer. We'll come back to Supervisor Conover here in a bit for his comments to that. Supervisor Stroud.
Yes, thank you. Given that, I don't know why I'm echoing here, but given the fact that we get elected every 2 years, and given the fact that a chairperson can hold that position for multiple years, there is very clearly the possibility that there is no existing prior chair of the board who is still a member of the Board of Supervisors. Given that, I think you should consider an official position as to the previous supervisor or the chairperson, because it could be that there is no previous chairperson on the current Board of Supervisors at that time. So I think the resolution number 63 needs more work.
Thank you, Supervisor Stroud. Are there comments from other supervisors? Hearing none in the boardroom. Supervisor Beatty?
Yeah, I think those are all good comments. Obviously, we want the most experienced person who's actually handled FOIL requests before to be the FOIL appeals officer. I mean, that's just common sense. I mean, we could, whether it needs a little tightening up on the verbiage on the resolution, I'm fine with that. I think this works for this year. If it needs to be redone next year, if there's no officials on the board that are former chair people, then obviously it would have to be reworked. But this year it works fine. We've got 3 individuals from Chairman Thomas, Chairman Conover, Chairman Garrity, all fit the bill and fit what this board, I think, is looking for, which is someone very experienced in handling FOIL requests. So I'm fine with it.
Thank you, Supervisor Beatty. Administrator Moore?
Yes, I think that I agree with the Supervisor Bramer. The amendments that Supervisor Conover offered are sensible, and we can reflect those in the policy for sure.
Supervisor Wild?
Madam Chair, is there any reason why we have to pass this resolution today, considering there's updates that need to be done? Otherwise, we just push it back to committee.
I certainly appreciate that direct question. I'm happy to answer it factually. The only appeal that has been filed this year was directly about me. At that point in time, I was not able to have an appeals conflict officer. That is why it's before you today to ask for immediate changes to that policy that is not spoken to in our current FOIL policy. And Supervisor Bramer has indicated that one of her priorities is to have a task force really look again at the FOIL policy. So I hope that addresses that question. Supervisor Bramer.
Thank you. I'm not sure if anyone was up. If I'm skipping over them, I know I'm going again. I do want to look at the FOIL policy again more globally, but I also feel like there isn't anything that's been followed in the past. We don't have anything. I don't know what the prior chairs were doing when there were conflicts. And I would like to have something in writing that says a particular procedure, because if the chairwoman gets foiled again, we don't want it so that she just gets to pick whoever she wants to be the next person. I think it's clearer and more transparent and fairer if it's just laid out in the policy as of today. And then if we want to change that, I will be bringing this through my committee to look at more global changes. And maybe we're changing the records access officer as well. So maybe we do some whole other thing with that person and the FOIL officer. I would suggest that we put it through today, though, this change,
If there-
with the amendments.
May I read back Supervisor Conover, the amendment to see if it meets your needs? And before I read this back, without objection, Supervisor Conover, and again, I don't want to influence the discussion here whatsoever, so I'd ask our administrator to speak to it. But as we all know, there's a 10-day time limit on how this gets processed. It's a very quick process. County Administrator Moore?
Yeah, the state law does speak to that. So upon I'm just trying to find it in the law, but when we receive an appeal, so that the individual who wants to appeal has 30 days to file the appeal. And then, we have a compressed period of time to respond to that appeal.
I can respond to that. The applicant on the appeal has to be responded to within 10 days, but the actual response may take longer depending upon the nature of the request. And usually in the response you detail that. So some of these responses are voluminous and they have to take their place in the order. So what it says is, the law says is that you have to respond within the 10 days. And usually within that response, you indicate some reasonable time frame as to when you're going to respond. It also indicates in that should there be whatever charges are going to be involved, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. However, the actual response itself, depending upon the request, could take longer to assemble. It may involve multiple departments. It may involve all different types of documents. You see what I'm saying?
Absolutely, Supervisor Conover, you bring up a good point. We did, and I'll defer to our county attorney. Many of us took a training with Chris O'Neill last week. She spoke specifically about what you were talking about the 10 days. She actually suggested that perhaps we look at talking with our state elected representatives to lobby and ask for some additional changes to that FOIL policy for the 10 days, because in her opinion, we don't have that flexibility. She had shared on that training that we could certainly try to make the argument, but ultimately it's up for a court, for a judge to determine whether or not that reasonableness is allowed the way that it is with a record access officer. But in case I am not understanding that correctly, and again, many of us were on that training, our county attorney, I've been told very clearly from our county attorney's office that 10 days is 10 days and that response needs to go out. Which is what brings us here. So I'm just concerned about getting the paperwork. Right. I'll do it, no problem.
So what I would propose here, again, I'm not thrilled with this, but if it's necessary to have to do this, then what I would suggest is that the ordinance in front of us be amended to reflect that the designation of the reviewers in the event of a conflict of interest submitted to the clerk in writing by the chairperson of the board would fall to the previous chairperson of the board. Should there be a conflict of interest on his or her part, it would fall to each succeeding chairperson. And as to the question of should there not be any additional chair people, I suppose at that point in time, it could fall to the deputy chairman of the board, correct? I mean, and we always have a deputy chairman of the board. So you could put that into the amendment as well. So in any event, that would be the amendment that I would offer, that it's this governing body that's designating and identifying the process. And I would agree with Supervisor Bramer that this entire matter should be revisited at the earliest possible convenience, and we should have absolute clarity on all of this. And that would be the amendment that I would offer for today. Thank you.
Supervisor Conover, excellent points. It's exactly why it's in front of us here today. My only question to you, you said in writing, will electronic means be sufficient for that, Supervisor Conover?
I would have Amanda put a form letter together with maybe, there's like 3 points of recusing yourself financial. They got different reasons. And all you do is check the box and sign it, and you're recusing yourself. And then it automatically goes to the next person in line. So no, I don't think it needs to be elaborate, and I don't know that you need to go into any significant detail on why you're recusing yourself. I think that if you recuse yourself because you're uncomfortable, because you think there might be a conflict or the appearance of a conflict, you recuse yourself. I think that's understandable. I think everybody should understand that.
Well, I think we put a lot of weight into what you say as a prior chair, Supervisor Conover. Thank you. I see Supervisor Dickinson's hand up.
I'd like to second that.
Would you like us to read it back to you, Supervisor Dickinson?
No, thank you.
Would anyone on the board like it read back to them? Supervisor Bramer has indicated she'd like it read back. May I ask our clerk of the board to please read it back?
So the changes I have marked are to the heading. It would change to resolution amending the Warren County FOIL policy and authorizing the prior chairs of the Board of Supervisors to decide and sign FOIL appeals when there is a conflict of interest with the FOIL appeals officer. And then I have adding another resolve, excuse me, which would say resolve that in the event of a conflict of interest, the FOIL appeals officer shall submit in writing, excuse me, a statement to the clerk of the board outlining same. The prior resolve does speak to this falling to prior chairs in order of reverse succession.
I'll open this up to discussion. Supervisor Wild.
Madam Chair, thank you again. I still go back to this, and the reason why I bring up moving quickly or not moving so quickly is because the fact that we tend to sometimes forget what we talked about earlier in the year. So I'm wondering if there's any state guidance, and maybe this is something from the state our administrator, to say that there's some state guidance that we might be able to use on this to get us forward in the short term, so that we can create the policy and get crafted the way everyone likes.
Thank you, Supervisor Wiles. County Administrator Moore.
The state agency that deals with FOIL is within the Department of State. It's an autonomous office, if you will. It's the Committee on Open Government. Kristen O'Neill is the Deputy Director, I believe, or the Deputy Attorney in charge of that department. And the official position of the state on this would be that if there's a conflict, the appeals officer cannot be the records access officer. And beyond that, we have, and the county attorney spoke directly with her on the morning of January 29th. And the advice was to do the process that we just did and come up with how we want to handle it.
Thank you.
Any further discussion regarding resolution number 63? Hearing none, I'm going to close discussion regarding 63. Or is there discussion on other resolutions?
We have a motion and a second to
Oh.
the resolution.
I would love it if we would vote on it, please. May I call the motion that's been made by Supervisor Conover, seconded by Supervisor Dickinson for resolution number 63 with the amendments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
I'm sorry, there are two opposed. Is that Supervisor Dickinson and Supervisor Stroud? Okay, 2 opposed. Any abstained? I'm sorry. Dennis, were you opposing or were you in favor?
No, I seconded the motion.
I thought it was a little odd you voted during the opposition. Okay, so we have 1 opposition from Supervisor Stroud and Supervisor Dickinson enthusiastically is voting here in favor of. Are there any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion carries. Thank you very much. Now opening the floor to other resolutions for discussion. Supervisor Merlino.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have just a question before we get to resolutions. We had an executive committee meeting on February 11th. One resolution was tabled to add another person to the executive committee because there was a clerical error. And the other one was to add 2 people to the Public Works Department, and it was tabled. No other information. Could I ask Ms. Brandel why we tabled it? You tabled it.
Thank you, Supervisor Merlino. Supervisor Bramer.
Thank you, Supervisor Merlino. I was concerned about there being a lot of changes to that particular set of rules. I have no problem correcting those to bring you on. If you would like to make that motion today, I would support it.
Well, why did we table it then? I mean, I'm just, if it's because the 2 of these people are me, and I'm not wanted on these committees, I'll gladly not take them and just end the problem. But I think it was irresponsible to table it And the chairman sitting there who brought it forth didn't make any comments on it. So I'm just curious why.
Excuse me, Supervisor Merlino, thank you. Your request is very valid. And to be clear, I did not make any comments on it to not weigh or persuade any type of discussion here today during debate or previously per the rules of our board and our training. So I've been trying to be very careful to abide by that. That being said, I think you have a very good question. I will also ask not only Supervisor Bramer to respond, but Supervisor Beatty, who chaired that meeting that day, if that's appropriate with you.
That's fine.
And at the same time,
Question.
oh yeah, and I'm sure our clerk can also speak to that issue as well when the time comes. Supervisor Bramer, then Supervisor Beatty, then Supervisor Conover. I think those are all the hands I see. Supervisor Bramer.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Again, Supervisor Molino, I have no problem adding you as a correction, and you should have been there. And I apologize for making it seem that you were not wanted. I'll take my mask off. Of course, I support you being on the committee as a chair.
Thank you, Supervisor Bramer. Supervisor Beatty.
I have no comment. That was the decision of the committee. I don't know why, but, and I didn't even vote on it because as a chair, you're not allowed to vote. So, Supervisor Merlino, that was the will of the committee at that time.
Thank you, Supervisor Beatty. Supervisor Conover.
This matter did come before the Public Works Committee, and the Public Works Committee to add Mr. Garrity and Mr. Merlino to that 5-person committee, making it a 7-person committee. I think it may have gotten entangled with another matter that it was listed with. And I can't imagine there would be an objection. They're 2 most experienced supervisors we have on the board. In fact, Mr. Merlino used to chair the Public Works Committee for a number of years. If the chair would entertain a waiving of the rules at this juncture, I would ask that we waive the rules to entertain a resolution to expand the Public Works Committee to 7 and add Mr. Merlino and Mr. Garrity to that committee. And I would introduce that as a waiving of the rules. Thank you.
Thank you. I would enthusiastically support that motion made to waive the rules by Supervisor Conover, and I see that seconded by Supervisor Beatty. May I call vote, please? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? That carries. Thank you. Now may I have a resolution to bring to the floor? Can I do these in one or separate?
No, you can do one. You're amending the rules of the board to increase the executive committee by 1 and our public works by 2.
In case everyone did not hear that, we are amending the rules of the board to increase the DPW committee from 5 members to 7. And we are also amending the rules of the board to add an additional chair, Chair Merlino, from Parks O&M to the executive committee. That is what is before you right now. May I please have a motion to put that onto the floor for a vote? That motion is made by Supervisor Scheffler, and that motion is seconded by Supervisor Bramer. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? That motion carries. Thank you very much. Thank you, Supervisor Merlino, to bringing that to our attention. And of course, we all incredibly value your input, experience, and your participation on those committees. Hearing Supervisor Thomas, we see you've joined. I want to make sure I recognize that you're here so that you are counted in attendance. Nice to see you, Budget Officer.
Good morning. Sorry about it.
No problem. Are there other discussions or on resolutions that are before you this morning? Hearing none, I'll ask the clerk to begin the process of our voting on resolutions. Thank you.
Before we vote, I just wanted to note, I misspoke on the floor resolution. So 66 is waiving the rules of the board. 467, which is the floor resolution. 68 will be another waiving the rules. Waiving the rules of the board, and 69 is amending the rules. So resolution number 24, making supplemental appropriations. Mr. Driscoll?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier? Yes. Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Hogan,
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson,
Yes.
Mr. Merlino,
Yes.
Mr. Stroud,
Yes.
Mr. Wild,
Yes.
Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Mr. Beatty,
Yes.
Mr. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. Shepler,
Doing.
Mr. Garrity,
Yes.
Mr. Conover,
Yes.
Mr. Leggett,
Yes.
Mr. Diamond,
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt,
Yes.
Ms. Bramer,
Yes.
Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Chairwoman Seaver.
Yes, as a point of order, I think I'm calling this on myself. I neglected to ask for public comment during the resolution portion, which is part of our agenda, which was passed by the rules of the board. Don Lehman, I am so sorry about that. Is there public comment regarding resolutions?
At this time, we do not have any public comment on resolutions.
Thank you very much. My apologies, Amanda.
Resolution 25, amending Warren County budget for 2021. Mr. Driscoll,
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier,
Yes.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Hogan,
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson,
Yes.
Mr. Merlino,
Yes.
Mr. Stroud,
Yes.
Mr. Wild,
Yes.
Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Mr. Beatty,
Yes.
Mr. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. Shepler,
Yes.
Mr. Garrity,
Yes.
Mr. Conover,
Yes.
Mr. Leggett,
Yes.
Mr. Diamond,
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt,
Yes.
Ms. Bramer,
Yes.
Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Chairwoman Seaver.
Yes.
Resolution 48, amending the table of organization and Warren County salary and compensation plan for 2021. Mr. Driscoll,
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier,
Yes.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Hogan,
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson,
Yes.
Mr. Merlino,
Yes.
Mr. Stroud,
Yes.
Mr. Wild,
Yes.
Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Mr. Beatty,
Yes.
Mr. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. Shepler,
Yes.
Mr. Garrity,
Yes.
Mr. Conover,
Yes.
Mr. Leggett,
Yes.
Mr. Diamond,
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt,
Yes.
Ms. Bramer,
Yes.
Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Chairwoman Seaver.
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution number 55, authorizing appropriation of funds from Countryside Rehabilitation Reserve to the Countryside Adult Home Budget. Mr. Driscoll,
A big yes.
Mrs. Frazier,
Yes.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Hogan,
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson,
Yes.
Mr. Merlino,
Yes.
Mr. Stroud,
Yes.
Mr. Wild,
Yes.
Mr. McGowan,
Very warm, yes.
Mr. Beatty,
Definitely yes.
Mr. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. Shepler,
Yes.
Mr. Garrity,
Yes.
Mr. Conover,
Yes.
Mr. Leggett,
Yes.
Mr. Diamond,
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt,
Yes.
Ms. Bramer,
Yes.
Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Chairwoman Seaver.
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution number 56, establishing 2021 and 2022 road fund projects. Mr. Driscoll,
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier,
Yes.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Hogan,
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson,
Yes.
Mr. Merlino,
Yes.
Mr. Stroud,
Yes.
Mr. Wild,
Yes.
Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Mr. Beatty,
Yes.
Mr. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. Shepler,
Yes.
Mr. Garrity,
Yes.
Mr. Conover,
Yes.
Mr. Leggett,
Yes.
Mr. Diamond,
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt,
Yes.
Ms. Bramer,
Yes.
Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Chairwoman Seaver.
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution number 57, authorizing the appropriation of funds from the computer reserve to various departmental budgets. Mr. Driscoll,
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier,
Yes.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Hogan,
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson,
Yes.
Mr. Merlino,
Yes.
Mr. Stroud,
Yes.
Mr. Wild,
Yes.
Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Mr. Beatty,
Yes.
Mr. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. Shepler,
Yes.
Mr. Garrity,
Yes.
Mr. Conover,
Yes.
Mr. Leggett,
Yes.
Mr. Diamond,
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt,
Yes.
Ms. Bramer,
Yes.
Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Chairwoman Seaver.
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution number 58, increasing capital project H254 Fire Training Center project. Mr. Driscoll,
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier,
Yes.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Hogan,
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson,
Yes.
Mr. Merlino,
Yes.
Mr. Stroud,
Yes.
Mr. Wild,
Yes.
Mr. Beatty, I'm sorry,
Yes.
Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Mr. Beatty,
Yes.
Mr. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. Scheffler,
Yes.
Mr. Garrity,
Yes.
Mr. Conover,
Yes.
Mr. Leggett,
Yes.
Mr. Diamond,
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt,
Yes.
Ms. Bramer,
Yes.
Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Chairwoman Seaver.
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution number 60, authorizing appropriation of additional funds from the Environmental Testing Reserve to the Real Property Tax Services budget. Mr. Driscoll,
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier,
Yes.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Hogan,
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson,
Yes.
Mr. Merlino,
Yes.
Mr. Stroud,
Yes.
Mr. Wild,
Yes.
Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Mr. Beatty,
Yes.
Mr. Thomas,
Yes.
Scheffler,
Yes.
Mr. Garrity,
Yes.
Mr. Conover,
Yes.
Mr. Leggett, Mr. Leggett,
Yes.
Mr. Diamond,
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt,
Yes.
Ms. Bramer,
Yes.
Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Chairwoman Seaver.
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution number 62, authorizing appropriation of funds from the general fund unappropriated surplus to the information technology budget. Mr. Driscoll,
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier,
Yes.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Hogan,
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson,
Yes.
Mr. Merlino,
Yes.
Mr. Stroud,
Yes.
Mr. Wild,
Yes.
Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Mr. Beatty,
Yes.
Mr. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. Scheffler,
Yes.
Mr. Garrity,
Yes.
Mr. Conover,
Yes.
Mr. Leggett,
Yes.
Mr. Diamond,
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt,
Yes.
Ms. Bramer,
Yes.
Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Chairwoman Seaver.
Yes.
Resolution passes. And resolution 63, amending Warren County FOIL policy, that's as amended. Mr. Driscoll,
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier,
Yes.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Hogan,
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson,
Yes.
Mr. Merlino,
Yes.
Mr. Stroud,
No, and I want to add that the reason why is the way it's presented has no legal permanency. It needs to be assigned to a position and not a person, but I needed to explain my no. Thank you.
Mr. Wild,
No.
Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Mr. Beatty,
Yes.
Mr. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. Scheffler,
Yes.
Mr. Garrity,
I was originally gonna vote no, but I'll vote yes because of what.
Can you turn the water off? Henry?
Added into the record.
What are you gonna?
Mr. Conover,
Yes.
Mr. Leggett,
Yes.
Mr. Diamond,
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt,
No.
Ms. Bramer,
Yes.
Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Chairwoman Seaver.
Yes.
Resolution passes. Need a collective on the rest.
Could I please have a collective vote on the rest of the resolutions in front of you? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Thank you. That motion carries. At this point in time, we have privilege of the floor. First, I'll extend the privilege of the floor to any supervisors. Supervisor Bramer.
Thank you, Chairwoman. I wanted to just take a moment to thank Senator Schumer for all of the relief that has been outlined in the bill that we heard about and got an email about. So I look forward to reading all those details. Also, I want to thank the Governor Cuomo's representatives for all of the information and help on the vaccine. I know it's been really difficult, but they have been working closely with our staff and with Mr. Moore on the data and also trying to get us doses. Of course, I encourage the governor's reps, and I know our chairwoman does daily, to get us those vaccine doses so that we can open the mass vaccination site right here at Gurney Lane. So I hope that goes forward soon, and I'm encouraging everyone to keep pushing for that. And also, I want to thank Dan Durkee from Warren County Public Health. He made a presentation on one of my constituent meetings recently with Councilwoman Palmer in the city, and he was very informative. He's always great, and I wanted to say thank you to him as well. And that is still on my Facebook page if anyone wants to watch it. He gave a lot of information about what Warren County Public Health is doing and all of the great work that they've been participating in. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Bramer. I have Supervisor Leggett, and then Supervisor Driscoll, and then Supervisor Stroud.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Just want to follow up. Yesterday, you got in your mail the strategy for attracting new residents. This is a product that came out of a private public partnership, and it really outlines some good strategies for what we can implement. Please take a look at it. It was produced by the Common Ground Alliance and the Northern Forest Center. And I think it's something we can really take a hold of and work on. So I appreciate your support with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Leggett. Supervisor Driscoll.
Thank you, Chairwoman. This past evening, it was my pleasure to join a Zoom presentation hosted by the City of Glens Falls and their police department. Also on that Zoom were, I think, 25 other individuals, including Jason Carasone, Matt Buren, Bob Busey, Marcy Flores, Rob York, and a number of other professionals and I would say community leaders or people that represent community interests. That pleasure was very short-lived. As people may have read in this morning's Post-Star or seen on the television news, the presentation was hacked on 2 separate occasions by individuals that I don't want to talk about what they did and said, but it certainly was disturbing to all of those individuals who participated in that. And I think it's a sad example of the fact that we still have a ways to go, both locally, statewide, nationwide, and I would even say throughout the world. I feel that we're going to get to where we need to be. This was in regards to the city's response to police reform, and they're going to reschedule that. I've put the city in touch with our county people who are responsible for setting up our Zoom meetings and involving other members of the public on YouTube. So they're going to move forward, but again, it was a sad example of the element that is still out there, and they're in all of our communities, and that's sad. Fortunately, I think that we have good people who are dedicated to making those types of things right. So thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Driscoll. Supervisor Stroud.
Yes, in regards to, the committee chairs and their reports, those of us that weren't assigned any chairmanships to any of the committees, regardless of expertise, didn't have an opportunity to discuss. I mean, some of the other committee chairpersons discussed their committee activities and then discussed other things as well. I mean, I too wanted to thank Sarah Frankenfeld. And I too may have perhaps wanted to discuss Resolution 63. But I wasn't given the opportunity to talk about any of those because of the order of events. I was never called because I was never assigned a chairmanship. I don't think that's fair.
Supervisor Stroud, thank you for your feedback on that. I'll just call everyone's attention to resolution number 6 of 2021 in the workshop training by our county attorney, Mary Cassane. At that time, she called our attention to number 4, where she, both Amanda Allen and Mary Cassane was specific about the order of business and also how we follow that order of business. So I appreciate your concerns. And that's exactly why during this time on privilege of the floor and announcements, we have an opportunity for further discussion. I know I saw Supervisor Wiles' hand up. Supervisor Wiles, did you still have a question?
I did have a comment, if that's all right.
Of course, yeah.
Thank you for the floor, and thank you, Chairwoman Sieber. I'm speaking loudly. Hopefully those on Zoom can hear me if you nod your head. If not, I'll get even closer to the mic. But as I agree with Supervisor Stroud, as someone who does not chair a committee, it's sometimes more difficult to get my points across than what I'd like to do, but I do appreciate this opportunity. One of the things that I always try to do is to thank the public for their engagement in the involvement in our economic recovery and the future of the economy in Warren County. There are many individuals that are contributing their time, their expertise, their skills to be able to make this happen. And since I no longer chair that committee, I did lead the Economic Recovery Task Force. It's now being taken over by Jim Ziplin, who is with Warren County's Economic Development Corporation. He's doing a great job. I wanted to take this opportunity to call him out for agreeing to take that over and for doing such a great job. But also at the same time, I want to mention that those in the public that want to get involved, there are two great forums. One hosted by Mark Bean regarding tourism and hospitality. The other, like I just mentioned, with Jim Ziplin. The more people we can get involved, the more ideas. It is apolitical. It's not a political body. It's a public body. And I encourage those that might be interested in contributing to please reach out to either those individuals or myself, and we can talk about your engagement and getting involved. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you very much, Supervisor Wiles. Supervisor McGowan, and then Supervisor Conover.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just like to put a thank you out to Jim Lieberman. We, in the Queensbury Planning Board Tuesday night, he did a stormwater presentation, and I just had a chance to review or to watch the video on the stormwater and the salt and the brining that goes on in our county. And I encourage everybody to watch the video there with the waterkeeper and everybody that's involved, really the town of Lake George and Hague and their involvement in really bringing this brining forward. I know we've picked up some equipment with our county in the brining, and you really, I've seen it down the road, and you can actually see the difference in the clearing of the roads for the roads that don't get the pre-treatment. But it's something I think that we need to keep on top of. But really, Jim put on a great presentation for the planning board and his involvement in all he does with the stormwater and our soil conservation all over Warren County and protecting our lakes. I just wanted to say that thank you, and just reach out to everybody that if they can watch that video on the brining. It was really informative and interesting, and it's something I think that we should stay on top of. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor McGowan. Supervisor Conover.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Today we voted on a grant application for Countryside to help us with the capital improvement program for Countryside. But it wasn't very many months ago, quite frankly, when we didn't have a capital plan at Countryside. And I can remember distinctly a meeting at Countryside being organized at the encouragement of then Supervisor Simpson, but more importantly, Chairwoman Edna Frazier of Human Resources, where it was advanced the idea of the need to develop a capital plan for Countryside, which was very well executed by our county planning department. And it was that initiative that Edna and her committee and the planning department, and I hope I'm not missing anyone here, and if I am, please excuse me, but that initiative that really set the stage, that work that really set the stage for hopefully taking advantage of partnering for funds for Countryside. So I just want to say to you, Edna, and to all of those that were involved in that process, good work. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments? Supervisor Bramer?
I have two comments. Thank you, Chairwoman. On the first one that Supervisor Conover just said, I think that capital improvement plan, not just for Countryside, but for all of the county infrastructure, was great. And I defer to Supervisor Hogan to work with the county planning department as we move forward with updating that and continuing to prioritize. And I look forward to all of her great work, leadership there, and the work of our county planning department. Also, I want to mention, because Supervisor McGowan brought it up about Jim Labram's presentation, on Tuesday at the Environmental Concerns and Real Property Committee, Supervisor Dickinson has put on the agenda the septic inspection at transfer well. So people are worried about water quality of our waterways and our lakes. This is a great way to prevent some of that pollution from entering our waters. And I hope that we will move forward with that particular law. Thank you. Thanks, Jerome.
Very good. Other privilege of the floor right now from supervisors? Trying to keep up with the hands, comments, nothing. Don Lehman, at this point in time, could we please have privilege of the floor from our public?
Sure. Let's get up to the top of the screen here. We have a number of thank yous to Sarah Frankenfeld from Gina Mintzer. Yay, Sarah Frankenfeld, very well deserved. From Maria Bosford, thank you for all your hard work and dedication, Sarah. From Visit Lake George, for Sarah, you rock. Sarah Frankenfeld responded, thank you everyone for the kind words. From a question from Maria Bosford, how much oversight does the county have over centers, nursing homes? I did exchange some messages with her and email with Janelle Jones and passed on some information to Ms. Bosford via email. But if anyone on the board would like to address that question, anyone with knowledge of that, they can feel free, obviously.
At this point in time, Supervisor Frazier, do you have anything you want to add to that, or just have Mr. Lehman send that on and you can touch base with him? That's fine. Okay, that would be great. Thank you very much, Mr. Lehman, as it relates to that question.
Okay, and then Ms. Bosford did add on that she is asking if anything the county can do to help the centers. It sounds like they are struggling in various ways. Again, I did email with her and explained what Janelle Jones explained to me. Ms. Bosford also added, with all due respect to Supervisor Strow, it's obvious your no vote on the FOIL change is personal. And Ms. Bosford, again, with all due respect, we are all over the pity party, Mr. Strow. And then Ms. Bosford added, we really enjoyed the stormwater presentation. So that is the only commentary we have on YouTube right now.
Great, thank you very much, Mr. Lehman. At this point in time, announcements. Are there any general announcements? Supervisor Merlino.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Do I have permission to go up to the podium?
Of course.
Thank
you. I can't hear anything.
He's not to the podium yet.
Oh.
But he's going. Supervisor Merlino, I'm sure they'll ask that you just, I know that microphone is on, but.
Hello, can you hear me?
Can you
A little louder, Gene, please.
All right, can you hear me now, Doug?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
We point that at him. Okay, I'll sit there.
Here, do you want to sit here?
So fast. All right, Doug, can you hear me now?
Yes, but it's fairly faint.
Not now.
Perfect, Gene. I love it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate the time. I just have a few things to make comments on. Number one, we all know elections bring consequences. Number two, in a couple of weeks, I'm gonna be 77 years old. And number three, when I started on this board 16 years ago, I was 220 pounds. Today I'm 175 and gray hair. A lot has happened in many years, and I've had a great privilege of being on this board. One you can't even explain. Met many friends, many colleagues. I gave 125% to this board every day. I worked hard. I loved it. I love this community. I love my town. When we started in January and the things came out on committees, it really got to me. I was removed from personnel, legislative and rules, public works, executive committee, and my biggest love, the chairmanship of tourism. I've been on tourism for 16 years, and I've been chairman for 10. I took it a lot personal, but what I'm about to say is really doesn't pertain to this as much. It just pertains to myself and my health. And I'm announcing right now that I'm not going to seek re-election this year. This will be my last year on the board. I want to thank you all my friends, for a lot of support. I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Supervisor Merlino. Thank you. Thank you for your years of service, for your commitment, and the fact that your passion and your love for not only Lake Luzerne, but for the entire county comes through loud and clear. I've enjoyed getting to know you, listening to you, calling you, probably way more than you would like, texting you, waking you up at 2:30 in the morning with my emails, and I apologize, and I hope that didn't go into your decision. But what I do know is that because of your experience, and now as Vice Chair of Tourism and OCTAX, and as Chair of Park and O&M, and your ability and innovative thinking and commitment to our community, we're able to make changes and implement many of those goals that you have had as well. I have so much respect for you. And I know that I speak on behalf of this entire board when we all say we are better because of you. Thank you, Gene.
Thank you.
Are there any other announcements at this time? Hearing none, may I have a motion to adjourn? The motion is made by Supervisor McGowan, seconded by Supervisor Scheffler. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. We are adjourned.